to sit in solemn silence in a dull... fuck, I don't remember. If I slur my words, I slur my words. Hi! It's Henrik, your archival assistant, now with audio and video. Eddie's fine. They're fine. They're no longer Deadwin, which is what I've been calling the whole zombie situation. Don't get on my ass about the gallows humor. We're in the gallows right now, and he found it funny. You know, so, what are they? Well, they're the archivist. Your archivist. We just don't know exactly how that affects us outside of the story. And I don't think they're just the archivist either, because archivists don't get powers from other horrors. They don't mimic. They don't distort. This is something else. We're not just following John and his stupid little plans anymore. There's something different that is affecting us. And there aren't any blueprints for this, so we're flying blind. And it's getting worse. It's pulling in more people. It's spreading, and the broadcast is getting stronger. I can feel it. I don't need the eye, though, to know that. Because I've got a statement of my own. So this is my little experiment. If I film this, is it going to end up on the broadcast? Will Eddie just know about it? Will I end up in their dreams? I don't know. Let's find out. So my old job just asked me to pick up a couple shifts while they're hiring some new people. The lonely doesn't affect me like in this same degree that it seems to affect Eddie, who's just boarded up all the time. Because, you know, don't get me wrong, I get a little foggy talking to people outside of the archive, but I can do it, right? And let's be clear, I need the money. Let's call the 15th, or yikes, I guess 16th horror capitalism. I'm getting off track. My job. I am a Chicago kayaking tour guide on Lake Michigan, which is exactly what it sounds like. Fun fact about Lake Michigan, by the way, deadliest Great Lake, like bar none. Most drownings per year in a all others combined sort of way. Thousands upon thousands of shipwrecks. Eastland disaster, I don't know if you know it, killed more people than the Titanic. So that's a big thing that Chicago's got going for it. There's a fun thing I say. Well, I say fun thing. It's a thing I say at the beginning of my tours where I go, "All right, everybody, who's ready to kayak on the largest graveyard of the Midwest?" And I don't know if that's true or not. It's probably not, but it's pithy and it gets people paying attention to the safety information, which is important because they're idiots that think they know better. On this particular day, I was going out into the harbor with a group of 20 kayakers who were, to put it kindly, moderately capable. There was this one guy, though, who spent 15 minutes waffling about what sort of kayak would get his butt the least wet, and I was like, dude, they're all gonna soak your ass. We have these Riviera kayaks that don't have walls, and so the water just helps itself to your pants. There's no stopping it. And I told him this, and he spent another 10 minutes before finally getting the one that I told him to get into originally. I hated him immediately. But then we were out in the water, which was great because I love it. And we were paddling along the harbor, and I remember thinking how much I just loved the feeling of just cresting over the gentle waves and just the sky all around, and thinking about how, you know, maybe as the season continues, I might take a kayak out by myself into Lake Michigan just for the heck of it, which is a terrible idea. Never kayak on your own in a large body of water, but I did, and I do, because I think way too highly of myself. Once we got to the playpen, which is this bigger open area in the harbor where wreck boats can just chill, one of the more competent kayakers, I think his name was Steve or something like that, he looked back the way we'd come to the north and asked me, "Hey, is it gonna rain today?" And it wasn't supposed to. I had checked because I am good at my job, but I looked where he was pointing, and like just beyond downtown Chicago, there was this massive black cloud. So it was gonna rain, turns out. It was gonna actually storm, and it was gonna have waves, which not like those small, fun Jersey Shore waves. I mean, like when you are in a kayak in the lake and it is storming, you pray to Mary, Mother of Jesus. You pray to someone, I don't care. Because, listen, like, there are full cargo ships at the bottom of the lake. It's the deadliest Great Lake, remember? And so, if you are in a little dinky plastic kayak without walls and it so much as drizzles, you make a beeline back to the dock, get out, go home, and never kayak again. It's not worth it. So I was like, hey guys, you guys are going back as soon as possible. I'm gonna go catch any stragglers. You guys, go! And they did that, thank God. And I went to go catch any stragglers. And I radioed back to the dock saying, hey, what's the deal with the weather? And nobody responded to me. I know what you're thinking, by the way. This is when you start listening to the statement and you start looking for those little foreshadowing things where you're like, oh, that's a spider. This is a spider one. I like the spider. I don't like the spider. It's an example. You see these details and you want to know where it is going. And so you ascribe a lot of meaning to these very little things. And I think, you know, with these statements, there is a lot of meaning in those little things because they're important to the story. But I'm not telling you about how Ricky didn't show up to work that day, or how Sid had 3 spiders in her kayaks, or how Andrew had sunglasses that were a little too dark, because none of it matters. Because say what you like about the horrors, but they're rare. And I had never experienced any of them outside of the podcast app on my phone. And also Eddie now, which is rough. Because there are other supernatural occurrences that are normal. And also, when you see a storm, you don't think it's some horrible shit. You think it's a storm. And I think it was a normal storm. I think it had really kind of nothing to do with what happened. What happened was just kind of as a result of it, but not like in a malicious sort of... I think it was a normal storm. The last straggler was, of course, that idiot, because of course it was. And he was at the edge of the harbor, like as far from the docks as you could be, because of course he was. And he was just sitting in his kayak, staring back at the storm. And then he looked to me as I paddled up to him, and he went, ooh, I wouldn't have expected you personally, but I guess that makes sense. And then I was like, I know what is going. This is some horror bullshit, because there's always some weirdo saying some weird thing and it never ends well. And so I just went, dude, not the time. We gotta go. And I don't think he knew how to respond to that, which makes me very, very happy. Because suddenly he was just the meekest he could possibly be. And I was like, oh, please, sir, can you get me back to the dock? I'm very scared. I don't know how to kayak. And I did have a job to do, so I attached my tow rope to his kayak, and I started pulling him back towards the dock. But not before telling him, like, hey, listen, if you capsize, bang on your boat, and don't scream. You're just gonna get water in your lungs. And then he looks even more scared. And at this point, the tops of the skyscrapers were disappearing into the cloud as the storm rolled over Chicago, and there were like tendrils of cloud falling over Navy Pier. The wind was getting stronger, and I got to a point where I could no longer look back to check on him, because anytime I did so, I would start getting pushed back. I had to keep on making forward progress, and I was looking about, seeing maybe flashes in the sky and wondering if it was lightning or if it was my imagination, and wondering what would happen if we got hit. And I began to wonder if there was anyone I missed, if there was anyone that had fallen behind and I hadn't noticed them, if once the storm had ended, we would just find a flipped over lime green kayak floating free in the harbor, and that would be on me because I hadn't looked hard enough. And then it started to rain. Sharp and hard and cold. And I laughed, because I didn't know what else to do. And it was ridiculous, because not like 20 minutes before, I was kayaking on the most placid body of water you have ever seen. And then suddenly, I was fighting Mother Nature herself as she just pressed her whole body against me. And it was kind of exhilarating, frankly, to be just testing yourself against that huge of an opponent. But there was also then this just subtle sense of danger underneath, just of I saw it coming before it hit. Just this wall of storm, of rain, of churning water just surging towards me, and it hit, and I screamed against it. Just this primal animal yell against the storm, and I felt a ball of ice fly into my mouth, and I had just enough time to be like, "Hail!" before suddenly my kayak flew backwards, hit the one behind me, and we both capsized into the water. And my first thought was relief, because it was just so much quieter under there. And yeah, you could hear the storm above, but it was quiet and it was still. And then I opened my eyes, and the kayaker was sitting upside down in his kayak under the water, just staring down into the depths. And he should have been panicking, you know. We both should have been panicking, frankly, but I wasn't thinking about myself in that moment. But he was just sitting there, upside down, underwater, in a storm, smiling down into Lake Michigan. So I was, a little bit curious and followed his vision. And frankly, whatever it was, should thank heavens that I've got 20/20 vision, because otherwise I don't think this effect would have worked nearly as well, because right at the edge of vision, that verge where the light no longer makes its way down through the water and just darkness is below, right at that edge, there was a body. And it looked exactly like him, and not like in a replicant way. It was like a reflection, just rippling slightly. And it smiled back up at him with calm, with peace, with an outstretched hand towards his. And he reached his hand back in return, and he slowly began to sink towards it, which humans naturally float. We're full of air, and more importantly, he had a life jacket. But he just slipped out of the kayak and gently sunk down towards his reflection. And I'm sure you see where this is going, because I looked below myself, and I saw me way down beneath the lake, smiling back up at me. And I couldn't help but think, when was the last time I had looked so calm? When was the last time I hadn't been afraid? And then it spoke. And through all that distance of water, I heard its voice, my voice, speak perfectly clear. Welcome to the greatest grave. And I knew, and I mean absolutely knew, without a shred of doubt, Eddie, I knew I was about to die. And I knew exactly what it was going to feel like to just abject non-existence, nothingness, not even darkness, just emptiness. Like how the world looks outside your vision. I mean, you can say what you like about peace and calm, but I didn't die. Spoilers. The Coast Guard grabbed me. Evidently my supervisor had called them when I didn't get back, and they saw my capsized kayak and pulled me out. They didn't get the other guy, though. He never came back up. The last time I saw him, he was maybe about halfway down towards his reflection. I can't think of many possibilities of what could have happened to him. I won't bore you with the specifics of my return to the dock. It was normal, harmless. Once I was no longer feeling like I was about to die, my first thought was, hey, this is going to be a good story, which I know, that's a whole thing I gotta unpack at some point. I've been busy. When I got back to the dock, I learned that the storm had capsized sailboats in the harbor. Let me say that again so that you and I both register that fully. The storm had capsized full-ass sailboats in the harbor, and I was in a little dinky plastic kayak without walls. If if the storm had pushed on a little bit longer, or is this Coast Guard had taken a little bit longer to find me, or you're a little bit further away, or all sorts of little things could have happened, and that would have just been it. Lightning could have struck us at any moment, and I don't think I'd even noticed before I was not there anymore. And the crazy thing, to me at least, is that this happened to me in my normal life, doing normal things. You know, like there's a element of like, you know, you're getting into something dangerous with the Magnus Archives, and you feel like, oh, this is something scary. But that was my normal life. Dangerous things aren't supposed to happen in normal life. At least I'm not used to them doing so. But the end doesn't chase you, I guess. It just waits. And ever since that day, I can feel myself dying. Not like there's a timer. I'm not Oliver. If a piano was gonna fall on me tomorrow and kill me, I wouldn't know ahead of time. But I bump my leg, and I can feel the cells of my leg die in response. And not just injuries, at every moment I can feel the cells of my body fall apart and die, and I can feel new ones being made, but not ever as many or as healthily as there were before. Just a slight bit more dead every moment of every day, as my body slowly loses the resources to keep itself going until there isn't me anymore. And I can't stop feeling it. I can't stop knowing it, even when I'm asleep. So that's my statement, I guess. Maybe we'll see if this ends up on the broadcast, and we'll see how angry you get when you find out I didn't tell you immediately, which I'm not particularly sorry about, because this just proves my point even more. There's nothing worse than death. Absolutely nothing. And if I'm going to be a little bit ugly, I'm incredibly jealous that maybe you can't die now, because you can say what you like about these other forms of death, about the death of the past version of yourself or a better version of yourself, or all this philosophical mumbo jumbo, and that's important. It's important to examine those ethical implications, but whatever happens, there's still a you there, right? Like the feed is still going. There's something there. You're alive, and there are things in the story that are actually able to kill us, and they're getting stronger. And I'm not interested in letting that happen. I don't want that to happen. I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not done living yet, and nothing's going to stop me from stopping that from happening, even if I have to go through you. I'm not threatening you if you're watching this. I'm not. Don't get the wrong idea. It's just, fuck. There they go. Hope you're well fed, my friend. Statement ends. Fuck.